yes, we are recording the conversation, so you are aware. So this is just the regular ELA office hours. And I want to do a couple of things. First, start with a couple of wellness practices. I think that's important. We'll talk a little bit more about why sometimes little things have a big impact. And then I'd like to take us back to talking about small wins, sharing some of your success stories, problems you've solved. Got to say, I was kind of surprised by how last week went. Glad that turned out as it did. And then we'll end up with a brief update and a discussion about planned PD. So with that said, I'd like to start with an exercise, especially where it's 4 o'clock. If you're like me, I actually have been on screen since about 5:30 this morning. And that's absolutely exhausting. So here's the first thing that I'd like you to try. First of all, look at your screen and focus. I'm going to say not your own face, but look at the screen and focus on somebody else's face for just a moment, right? Get your eyes fixed on somebody else's face for just a moment. And let your eyes relax. Let them get acquainted with that spot, that face. Okay. Now, lift your eyes to some spot above your screen. Go up high, pick a spot up high, and again, focus on a spot up high and let your eyes relax on that spot. Now, if you have a window, look out your window at the farthest thing you can see. If you don't have a window, look as far as you can at the farthest point away from you. Focus on the thing that is the farthest away from you. Again, let your eyes relax. Let them soften into that distant focus. Okay, I have to tell you something really weird. When I said to look out the window and look at something far away, my cat Elsa did. She and I think Elsa and I were looking at the same distant spot. So that's an example of a really simple eye break. And one of the things that I'm working on right now is just creating a series of slides so that on a slide there's a single wellness break, some kind of activity, something that could be really simple, something that's maybe a little bit less simple, but things that can give you a bit of a break without taking a whole lot of time. And taking eye breaks is really, really important. And so making sure that you look away from the screen, that you focus on another spot, focus on yet a different spot, is really going to help your eyes, but it also can help your concentration as well, right? Help you get back to that. Okay, one more thing that I'd like to do with you, and this is one where I have to say, because of my current situation, I need you to do what I say, not what I do, okay? You gotta trust me on this one. So I'd like you to stand up for a moment and stand so that your 2 feet are shoulder width apart, okay? And you're gonna balance, you're gonna get yourself centered so that you're standing with your 2 feet shoulder width apart. Okay, so nice and balanced and centered, stand up nice and straight. Okay, I'm balancing on one leg, so don't do as I do. So now you're going to take your right hand and start at your fingertips on your left side and just gently tap all the way up your arm, all the way across your chest. And then with your left hand, tap all the way down your right side. Now, Stretch all the way down to the floor or as close as you can get. Okay, with your two hands, start tapping on your feet and gently tap all the way up the front of your legs, all the way up your hips, all the way up to your shoulder. And then reach behind you and start tapping all the way down. Do it all the way down the back of your leg, all the way back to your ankles. You can do that a couple of times, you know, go through it, wake yourself up, right? Go down, tap, 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 tap. This is a really simple and easy movement break, right? And again, it's waking up, it's tapping into all the parts of your body, getting everything going. We forget to do that. So in the feedback, one of the suggestions was really helping us take care of ourselves and take care of each other. Checking in like this is how we're taking care of each other. Simple things. I know we'd love to be doing big grand things to be taking care of ourselves, but sometimes it's what you can do with the 5 minutes that you actually have that are the best things you can do to take care of yourself. So I'm going to try to keep feeding you these little things. I have a friend who is becoming a Reiki master, and when we talked about it the other night, off the top of her head, she gave me like 10 things that you can do quickly that will get you recentered, get your head clear, you know, get your energy perked up again. So I'm working on putting those together, and I hope by next week I have a nice grab and go, pick up kind of activity. So another way that we can take care of each other is to share our solutions to our problems. I have to tell you, last week it was all about attendance. I had not anticipated that, but I have to tell you, I think you didn't either. Like what a big deal taking attendance would be. So that was nice that you could voice that and share your solutions and your strategies. So I'd like to hear from you. Does anybody have a story of a problem that you have solved this week? Something that, you know, it was a challenge, whether it was anticipated or not. What's a problem you've solved, or a small win, something you're like, yes, I got that done. Ellen.
I will say that this is kind of a small win from the Grading for Equity that we did this summer, but I've been slowly feeding out a little bit of my new policies, which some kids had me last year, so they know that this is different. But I was explaining to them the 0 to 4 scale, and then I was able to convert it to a 100-point scale after I graded as a 4-point scale, and then explain to them how I was doing that so it was still benefiting them. And the kids are really excited when I said, you know, a 0 to 4 scale, you've only got one of those numbers that actually represents a failing grade. And I would rather, you know, 20% chance of failing as opposed to 64% chance of failing is the focus. With a 100-point scale at Winslow, you have to get a 65 to pass a class. And you know, I thought it would make a big difference in how the kids would, I thought they'd all be passing and doing really well, but they're not, because I also told them that if they passed work in late, that I wasn't going to take points off. So I think they're still struggling with, because we're doing a hybrid of one day in class, the next day at home, and they're still trying to figure out what that looks like from expectations of different teachers. And so, but my win is that I told them that my philosophy on education was based on student success and allowing them to focus on, I wanted them to be successful, that teachers don't get into teaching because we want them to fail. We get into teaching because we want them to be successful. And that I was going to do everything I could to help them be successful and show what they know. So I'm loving implementing some of the philosophies that I learned this summer.
That's awesome. Ellen, were your students surprised when you said, you know, I'm dedicated to your success? Did they seem surprised by that?
Kind of hard to tell because most of them shut their screens off, so that their cameras off, because if not, we don't have, we didn't know. I'm teaching remotely and the kids are in my classroom with a sub.
Yeah.
And it's only half the kids at a time. So, but when I asked them questions and I asked them to type in the chat box, do you like this idea? The kids were like, yes, 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 yes. And they type back really fast. And so some of it is like, if I ask a question and it's crickets out there, I don't know what they're thinking, but,
right.
And it's funny because I'm learning that, it used to be like, oh, hasn't turned it in. So I mark it as missing. And then I send the kid an email and then they turn it in and I'm like, and here's your grade, whatever it was you got for it. So I've got some kids who are turning things back in and some kids who are super apologetic. They didn't turn it in on time. And I'm like, you did exactly what I asked you to do, which was to email me if you couldn't get it turned in on time. And I'm going to put your name down to go back and check it. So it's really freeing.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're seeing the payoff on motivation as well, right? Like the kids would get that idea a few times, because think of how defeated they feel if they know that their grade is already starting out compromised, right? So you're affecting motivation for sure. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Thanks. Win for me. I was happy. Win for.
Woohoo. Anybody else have a win or a solution you'd like to share? Kim?
Well, you see these handy dandy Amazon specials?
Yes.
They're blue light glasses. And I was having horrendous headaches at the end of every day because we're very structured with our remote learning right now because our new school is still not ready. So I said, I'm going to buy some, and holy moly, I thought, I just bought into a gimmick, but it has truly made all the difference. I didn't have a headache yesterday, and I didn't have a headache today. So win for Kim.
Ooh, that is a great, I can see and I can tell when people are wearing those blue light glasses because of the way they reflect the light, you can tell. I have to wear these, graduated lenses. It's like 3 different levels here. So I got a film that I put across my screens. I have fitted all of my screens with the blue light film, and I feel like it does the same thing, and I can still wear my glasses. So I think there's really something to be saying in investing in yourself to get the blue light glasses or the blue light film. Really makes a difference. Carrie.
So I wanted to add another thing that I read about today with helping your online eyeballs is that supposedly when you're staring at the screen, your blinking slows by something crazy like half. I don't remember the number, but it was a big number. So you have to blink more, like on purpose. We're blinking now. We're all blinking. Ding, ding, ding. Anyway, so my big revelation this week is about hybrid teaching. So I have some kids in front of me in the classroom. I have my alternate day kids at home, and then I have another group of fully remote kids. And it was really hard to wrap my head around how to teach each of these groups and in what time frame. And I quickly learned that if I taught them separately and, by day, it would take forever to teach the things that I need to teach. And I have them now for a semester instead of a whole year. So what I do is so everyone comes onto the Google Meet when class starts, and I pretend that the kids who are online are part of the actual class, so we are all still one whole class. It's just that some kids are being projected up on the screen and some kids are live in front of me. And I do, all of my mini lessons and kind of upfront teaching for like 20 minutes. And today I went more like 30. And then I let the online kids go off at, at some point. And I'm finding that I have to do tons more planning and things are moving very quickly, but I feel so much better about what I'm doing.
I think in the feedback that I got for the back to school survey, a lot of people said, I think that they were probably where you just described your headspace, like knew they were going to have to juggle all these different situations, and they were really looking for help with blended instruction, with the blended learning piece. And that's a big idea. So I've been trying to dig into those responses and really pull out, the specific needs. I think there are a lot of things going on. And so, what are some of the really specific things that we can look at that would help people feel more confident or more successful with the blended learning? I can't imagine, Carrie, how you're doing those lesson plans. Is everybody reading the same thing? Are they working on the same assignment? Are you looking at the same outcome?
Yeah, the answer is yes, basically to all those questions. So I post the agenda in Classroom and I have it on the board too, and we're all doing the same thing. So right now what we're doing is we have these little 3-week units that we're creating that are topic based, and it's identity right now. And basically we're building a text set around identity. And so for instance, today, we have to do attendance, and then we start them with a notebook entry. So today we were talking about aspects of our own identity and how we identify, with some free writing. And then I used the book Tell Me Who You Are as a mentor text, and the kids read 3 selections from that. So kids volunteered, like some online kids read in front of the class, and some in-class kids did. And then, we have like discussion after that all together. And then they had to actually produce a piece of writing, in the spirit of Tell Me Who You Are as personal narrative. And I actually used the rubric function in Google Classroom for the first time today too. And it was super easy.
Great.
Yeah, so they're all doing the same thing. It's like they're all there in front of me. It's just that some of them are in flesh and some are in particle.
Right. Some of them are pixelated.
Yes.
Great. All right, it's doable. Anybody else have a revelation, a small win, or a solution? Denise, do you have one?
Well, I was going to ask a question to Carrie, actually. So Carrie, what do you do when you have, like, that's my ultimate goal, is to be doing that, but I just still am at the point where I have so many kids having a hard time zooming in at the right time of day for my class. They zoom into a different class. And so I find that if I try to do something together, I still have to either put a video or still put something in Google Classroom for those kids who were not in attendance. And I was just wondering if you have run into that at all.
So just a little bit, and I think already I'm seeing that it's improving. I mean, I think it's something that kids have to just get used to. It's a new schedule. They have to join in right at the top of class. And I have a couple kids, I had one kid who's been just kind of MIA, and her parents decide to put her on fully remote, and she didn't understand what was going on. And so I just had a one-on-one Google Meet with her this afternoon, just to touch base, and that was easy. And so I think I also have an office hour on Wednesdays, and we have time in the afternoon. So I think my temporary solution to what you're talking about is just to have smaller meets with kids who need to be brought up to speed. My original plan was to record myself and post it rather than do it live, but I'm so much happier now. I mean, I did videos in the spring of myself constantly and posted them instead. I got so sick of myself, first of all, but And the fact that it was me all the time, you know, was missing the students' voices. I'd much rather hear them talking than me talking. So yeah, I hope that helped. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yeah. One thing I noticed, a good thing, I had a student for the first time today. We've been at school now. This is our third week. And it was his first time successfully Zooming in today. And that was a huge thing. Like, we finally got it to work. And then I've also noticed that I have a lot of students when they're Zooming in. We're the same, Carrie, as you. I have our track A students who are in class, hybrid in class, and then I have my hybrid remote. Then they flip every day. And then I have about 34 kids that are 100% remote. And it's a lot to juggle. And just when I think I have my head wrapped around it, I don't. It all falls apart. But so it's been very hard to manage all of that. And our school is asking us when students are at home and they're remote, they can either Zoom in with us like you're doing, and we could have class together, or we could do some sort of like remote activity that, as long as they participate in it during our class time, then we can count them as present because they were technically doing something in my Google Classroom during my class time. But I have 97 kids, and it's a nightmare to manage who's in there at what time, what group are they this day or this day? And but I would have to say every day gets better, and I'm starting to see students sometimes it feels like I'm talking to a wall because a lot of the kids don't want to show their faces. And even though we've asked them, we've been told we can't force them to. And I'm seeing more faces this week. I think kids are slowly getting a little more comfortable with it. So I would say that's a win. But there's a girl that fell asleep, and her screen was showing. She was sitting on her bed. She was all nice and cozy and completely fell asleep. Everyone saw it, and they were all, yelling her name, wake up, wake up. And someone tried to call her on the phone to get her to go to her next class because the class ended. And so we've had a lot of things that we didn't know that we would experience, but we're working through them all, and seeing their faces is great. And I am having a hard time not seeing faces. And some students are not engaging, but I think it's getting a little bit better every week. So we're just going to keep plugging along. And I have had those individual conferences with some students, and that does make a big difference.
I think I heard a tip in there. I've tried to tell this to my grandchildren. Get out of your pajamas, get out of your bed. Treat it like school, right? Don't be too comfy.
Right. She called me, she messaged me afterwards and said, I'm so sorry. And I said, it's okay. What are we going to do different next time so that this doesn't happen again? Could you sit at your dining room table? And, so we tried to come up with some ideas for her, and it has been much better. So
Oh, that's good. That's good.
It's probably embarrassing for her, actually.
Yep, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah. Heather.
So I just want to say what you were talking about, Denise, made me think of even the kids right in front of me are very quiet. There's this whole piece of putting the mask on, and they don't want to talk. They don't want to, they're not very vibrant. I actually kind of jokingly said to a group of kids today, I feel like you're all wearing gags.
Yeah.
Because, this just feels weird that nobody really wants to talk. But I have had, the flip side of that is I'm having lots of conversations through email, through comments on documents that students are handing in. They're really being active there, so I'm very happy with that. And I almost feel like some students are getting more one-to-one from me than they would in a normal year because of that. And it is more time consuming, but it's often just a quick, I put a comment on a Google slide a student did for me. they respond, it comes to my email, I do a quick response back, and so there we've had an exchange. And so I feel like I'm getting to know them. But I wanted to say one of my wins, I think, big wins for this first week in the class I took this summer, the grad class about designing online learning experiences. There was a real emphasis on encouraging students to consider themselves active participants in charge of their own learning goals. So I started this year by asking them to, so we're gonna I had them create a Google folder that they're sharing with me as a portfolio, and the first document in it is their goals for the course. So they had to read my syllabus, and based on the syllabus come up with some of their own goals. And I've been really excited by the thought that students are putting into their goals. So just by inviting them to participate in that process instead of just, you know, here we are, this is what we're doing in English, right? What do you want out of this class? And I mean, like, we know that's good teaching, but it's easy sometimes to lose that in the everyday. And many of my students are freshmen coming to the high school for the first time, and this is my first interaction with them. And again, I've just been really impressed with the thoughtfulness they're putting behind their goals.
So think if you link that, Heather, to Ellen's statement about, you know, teachers are in this to help you be successful, and you link their goals to your intentions and your goals. You know, there's a great way of building relationship. I think, Shannon, did you have, yep?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about a small win. We're full remote, like Kim said. We don't have a school building to go to. But in the spring, we were asynchronous. So we were giving students work at the beginning of the week, checking in with them. Check-ins were more sporadic. And honestly, I think I worked 12 hours a day, every day in the week, answering random emails at 10 o'clock at night and just trying to help students through it. And this fall, we've gone really synchronous with remote learning so that they have their designated times to check in with our class. We're running our class. I'm running my class exactly the way I would as if I were in person, remotely. And my day really does end with the idea of when school ends, as far as students emailing me, like that is a big relief, because I do echo Ellen's idea that I'm here for them to be successful. And I was trying to give them everything they needed in the spring. And I think it was just such an overwhelming time for everyone that I find that students have settled into that idea of remote learning. But I think it's also because we're doing full-time remote.
Yeah.
So I think that that's different. I'm listening to this juggling idea, and it honestly terrifies me. I think that that's a really big expectation for teachers in the classroom.
No doubt about it. No doubt. Yeah. Well, and you know, that idea of having regular times for doing school that's important. That's how we take care of ourselves, but also take care of our students as well. I think in the spring, families were overwhelmed, and they were also feeling like school was happening 24/7. And I think that was a lesson learned for all of us, you know, and it's definitely the same with work. We have to set our boundaries. We have to be clear about beginnings and endings. And so with that in mind, I'd like to transition over to a little talk about professional learning and support. I didn't want to go too hard and heavy in September because I think this is going to take extra effort this year for us to settle into a routine. But clearly there are some needs, and there are some ways to address those needs. So I want to tell you about a couple of things coming up. I know some of you, and as Ellen had mentioned, worked on studying grading equity over the summer. To me, that we did that because it had such a direct connection to distance learning, and it had such a direct connection to asynchronous learning, to how we combine what we did and what we do live in school with what we do remotely and all of those pieces. So it's a very strong connection. I've just finished writing a grant proposal, going over it one more time, ready to submit it. What I want to do is add 100 more people to that text study, right? By 100 more texts, get more people and from other content areas so that maybe we can have some school teams coming in studying, excuse me, the first part of the book. There's these 6 chapters that give the whole background of grading and you know, the cultural practices with their implications. You know, it's 150 years of some of these practices that we have to really come to understand. But then the second part of the book is about these pillars that help us understand the accuracy of grading, that help us create bias-resistant practices, and that really help us understand what motivates students. And so my idea is the people who did the study the first time and who focused on a single pillar can maybe jump in and lead and participate in study of a different pillar or a deeper study of the same pillar they studied before, and have more opportunities. We'll do the pillar study a little bit different this time and spread it out over a couple of months. And in this way, really build a cadre of people who are studying equitable grading practices and are looking at not only the application in their own classrooms, but really looking hard at how we develop some systemic changes. So look for me in the next 24 hours to reach out to all the folks who previously participated with you know, an opportunity to keep moving forward. The other thing that's going on, and I may have mentioned this last week, although I'm now getting into that space like Groundhog Day. I'm not sure who I'm having these conversations with, but you know, in the feedback, people were suggesting that one way to really get a handle on remote learning, because you know, the idea is that we're probably going to do a lot of that this year, but then it's going to become a regular classroom practice. We'll never have another snow day. We'll never be affected by, you know, negative events again. That school will always have the opportunity to continue as long as we get a handle on how to do this. And so folks were suggesting the distance learning playbook. Well, some of you have done the 3-session series with me about visible learning. And the distance learning playbook is written by the same authors. It's Doug Frey, Nancy Fisher, Doug Fisher, Nancy Frey, and John Hattie. And they, in the distance learning playbook, they're taking those elements of visible learning and applying them to this virtual environment. You know, when we have to have a blended or a distance kind of learning situation. So I would like to do an ELA focused distance learning playbook study. I'm reaching out to the 200 people who've participated in the 3-session series of visible learning. I'm collaborating with MCELA as well to really do a deep dive and take our time. It's a playbook. It's really, you know, there were some folks who had said they were applying what they learned from visible learning to this situation, which if you're doing that, it's really helpful and it helps you, I think, get a grip on things. But this is another way to do that. So Shannon, I'm definitely going to be calling on you to help us, you know, figure out how to organize and structure that. So what I'm going to try to do is the same thing that I did originally with the Grading for Equity. I'm applying to buy 50 copies of the book. I think a lot of people have already bought it, but I'm going to buy another 50 and get them right out to people to make sure that that's not a reason not to do it. And then really lean into folks who have a familiarity with visible learning practices to help facilitate sessions around the study of the distance learning playbook. And working with MCELA is important because they are our voice, and they are, you know, our professional organization. And so they're going to help us charge through this. Excellent. Yeah, I think a lot of people already have it. So if you want a colleague to do this with you when they don't have it, you know, get them. Yeah, get them to jump in and, you know, tell them, oh, here, if you are one of the first 50 to register, you'll get this book sent to you. So, yep.
Sorry, can you sign me up for that, or is that going out soon, Morgan?
It's going out really soon.
Okay.
I'm going to send something to the 80 folks, nope, to the 200 folks who did visible learning before. Anyway, you'll hear from me. I have to tell you, I have every minute of every day the rest of the week planned up until like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. But I'm getting this in there because what I don't have planned is 5 a.m. and that tends to be when I get up and like I'm motivated. And I do more between 5 and 7 a.m. than I do between like 7 and noon. So that's my plan so far for supporting. I saw all of those pleas. It was gut wrenching to see these pleas for support for how to do education this year. And I think the more that we break it down into its parts, what are the things that are causing angst, and how do we do that? I think with the distance learning playbook, and I think with the grading for equity, we can get to some of the structures we need for helping students do close reading. We can get to some of the structures we need for doing really meaningful writing assignments. Now I'm going to plant a seed for next week. Collaboration. How do you define collaboration? Because that was another topic that came up in the feedback. People wanted to know how to do collaboration, especially if you had some kids live and some kid online. You know, what do you mean by, how do you define collaboration? What are some of the tools that you use, and how do you hold students accountable for collaboration? Right? So just be thinking over this next week about collaboration in your various contexts. What is it and how does it work? And that's the topic we'll look at next week. So I'm going to tell you, I'm working with a bunch of Moose groups, and I have one who has decided to meet at 4 o'clock every Tuesday. So yeah, we'll be working around that. We'll meet at this same time next week. I'm going to look at doing a happiness hour in October. I'd like to do one each month. I did one in the summer, you know, where it was like 7 o'clock in the evening, come to do a happiness hour. And I did an exercise from the Science of Happiness course, and that seemed to be well received. I'd like to do that once a month. Have a happiness hour. It's okay if you come with your glass of wine, right? Whatever it takes. And just looking for the best time to do an open ELA hour. So I'm gonna cut this a little short so I can jump over and check in with my Moose group. You'll be hearing from me. I've got an ELA update coming, following up with visible learning, following up with grading for equity. It's all going to happen in the next couple of days. Nice to see everybody. Let me know what you need. Thanks for your help. Take care, everyone.